What's up, guys? It's Aaron here at New Buzz Farm. I was talking to Louisiana Kerr in the comments on one of my videos. I realized that I haven't done an orchard update in a really long time, so I wanted to kind of take you guys through what's going on in the orchard, the mulching strategies I'm currently using, kind of why I'm doing that, and then yeah, just give you a general update. So let's get started. Alright, so the tree I have here is a red mulberry. They kind of grow like weeds, and they're currently some of the best performers. When I planted these guys, this has probably put on 18 inches of growth so far this year, which is a lot better performance than I've got out of most of the trees in the orchard. A lot of that has to do with really droughty conditions this year. We went through a pretty extended period of time with really hot weather, and here I got, it was over a month and a half where I only got about a quarter inch of rain. That really kind of stunted the growth of a lot of these trees. I don't have my irrigation system set up yet. It's going to be a pretty substantial investment money-wise. It's just something I haven't jumped to yet. So all of this was watered out of a large IBC tote out of the back of my truck, about a 300-gallon tote. But that's a time-consuming way to do it, and it meant that I was basically just giving most of these trees and bushes just enough water to stay alive. And they could have performed better, for sure, in their first year. They had a more sufficient water supply. So I want to take you through what I'm doing. Where I live here in McPherson County, we have a service where our Board of Public Utilities, when they trim trees, they drop them off at a centralized location, and those trees are chipped, and I can pay $5 for an entire front loader or a high loader scoop of chipped tree trimmings. And so that's what we have here down as mulch around all these trees. It's quite a bit of work to spread this much mulch. It's close to, well, right around 200 trees or what are in this orchard. And this is actually a little less mulch than I have on some of these trees as far as diameter wise. You can see my goal here isn't necessarily elimination of competition. I'm not using black tarp. I'm afraid that in this environment where we get this much heat, that black tarp, even though it traps moisture underneath it, may heat up the soil to a point where it damages the roots. That's why I have refrained from using that here. It's also a mess when it's time to clean it up. I don't want to deal with digging black plastic out of the soil, especially after it started to degrade. The idea here with this mulch is I'm trying to build a fungal duff. We're in a prairie ecosystem, which means that we're going to have a bacterially dominated soil. I'm trying to get in wood chips, kind of mimic a forest edge ecology, which is where you're going to find fruit trees in the wild. So that's what I'm trying to mimic here, and so I'm trying to build up fungal dominance in the soil. And I'm also trying to suppress these really strong prairie grasses. These prairie grasses have extremely fibrous root systems. They are going to really put a hurt on trees if you don't have some kind of mulch or weed suppression around them in this area. And like I said, this reason I went with wood chips, and it was readily available and it was cheap. One of the things I'm doing when I'm mowing these areas, that's another thing that I do. I'm mowing about a 8-foot wide swath around each row, and I'm blowing that grass back onto the trees, basically as a little bump in nitrogen and some added organic material. You can see underneath these wood chips, I actually have grass that I've blown on. These wood chips were applied after the last time I mowed in this area, so you don't actually see that blown on grass right now, but it is there. and I'll continue to do that. Rabbit guards on all these trees are incredibly important. First year I was here, I wanted to plant some trees, planted them. They were actually left alone for quite a while, and then it was within 48 hours, the rabbits found where I had my little nurse bed of trees, and they killed 90% of my trees in 48 hours. So that's the other thing I found through tough experience. It was completely necessary in this area. So there's some things to think about. Mulching strategy, went over that. I'm trying to encourage diversity in this orchard. I have 10 different varieties of fruits, mostly Kansas natives planted right now. They're actually in rows by type of tree. So that'll make them, I'm hoping, easier to harvest when it comes time. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of a little bit of strategies. I think we need to take a walk around real quick and kind of look at some of the stuff that's going on in the orchard and just have a minute of observation. All right, so walking down the rows here, I said this is my red mulberry. I have these planted into rows. Ooh, little dip there in the ground. These trees kind of grow like weeds, the mulberry, and so they're actually some of my best performers. You can see I do have a little bit of disease going on, but overall, these mulberries are in really good health. Now, I was speaking a little bit about competitive grasses here. Some of these, as you can see, are pretty large. And we'll run into more of that. If I don't mow this part of my property, I'll get a lot of grasses that are actually taller than I am, over 6 feet tall. And so it's pretty dominant. These prairie grasses are pretty dominant. And so the mulch becomes an absolute necessity, and weed suppression becomes an absolute necessity. One thing that I ran into, whoever had this property before me actually planted some redbud trees, and they've been mowed over quite a few times. I just left them in place actually right now. There's no point in battling it. They're really, really hard trees to kill. And I believe they're actually nitrogen fixers as well. So I'm going to leave them here basically as biomass accumulators, and I will cut them back when they get in the way, and drop the trimmings to again as mulch and to increase my fungal duff. And those roots from the tree will slough off underground when I do so, and can continue to build my underground biomass. If it becomes an issue in the future, I might try to kill these trees, but I don't think that it will. So that's something to think about. You know, you don't necessarily need to come in and annihilate everything in the ecosystem. I like to try to make slow changes and see what I can get away with not doing. This is a tree that I'm really, really excited about. This whole row here is persimmon, and I'm really excited about them. I didn't expect them to do as well as they're doing. They're actually one of the better performers as far as just having healthy looking leaf material. Height-wise, they didn't put a lot on, and like I said, the drought was a big factor in that. But if you see, I mean, they have really, really good dense leaf growth and very, very little disease pressure right now. And you can see, I mean, look at the competition you have from some of this grass. And this is after me, you know, controlling it over and over. I've weed eated these areas several times this summer, and I've been mowing around these rows. And I mean, you can see the grass is just really, really dominant. But these persimmons seem pretty happy in this environment, which is pretty exciting. This here is ironweed. It's a wildflower, produces real pretty purple flowers. I definitely do my best to minimize destroying anything that's going to help out pollinators. So anything that's a flowering plant, I'm going to try to leave in place as long as it's not putting too much pressure on my trees. This here, you can see this is kind of towards the end of the bloom cycle as well, but these purple flowers, this is what ironweed looks like when it's blossoming. It's really pretty. This here is a pretty cool plant that's really prevalent in areas of my property. You can see it here. This is called partridge pea. This is actually a legume, and you can see it forms pods, and the leaf structure is the only other thing that kind of hints toward it being a legume. These compound, this is kind of folded up at the moment, but these compound leaf structures are a hint that you might be looking at a leguminous plant. Legumes fix nitrogen in the soil, and they're going to improve your soil. And so this is definitely a beneficial plant. I didn't put any of it here. It came in all by itself. And the pollinators, when this stuff is blossoming, really love it. Right now we're pretty late in the evening, and all the pollinators have kind of gone to bed, it seems. But it's a really busy plant. I've actually got a really cool picture I posted on Instagram here recently, if you want to check it out, at New Bus Farm on Instagram. And that's a flower spider that I found had attacked my honeybee, a honeybee in one of these partridge peas, and killed it. So it was a pretty cool thing to find. But so you can see, these persimmons are doing really well here. And this one's got a little bit of insect pressure on it. As you can see, some of these leaves are eaten back. One thing that I've had less trouble than I expected with is deer. I really haven't had a lot of deer predation. It may happen more as the weather gets cooler, and if it does, I'm probably going to start spraying deer repellent. Fencing off areas this large get a little impractical cost-wise. It may be a long-term solution, but it's not something I'm going to do right now.